This is WX Live, webinar number 21, Friday, April 26, 2012, at the great hour of 4:30 a.m. Pacific time, so that we could have our friend Stephen here from Australia, as well as our other friends from the other side of the world, South Africa.
Good morning, South Africa.
Okay, so we have this little thing that we want to announce here.
Yes.
So I'm going to shove it right there.
And is it going to be me or you, Arnold? Who's going to throw this in?
Do it. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I want to kind of give you a little background. If you can see this on the screen, we have already started to put together for this fall in November the WXDevCon 2012. This is going to be a little bit different than some of the other developers conferences
we are involved.
You've ever been in. That's right. Yes. This is going to be, like I said, a little bit different than what you have done before. And I'll give you a little bit of thoughts on this. Number one, since the majority or a very large group of us have not fully got into or still learning a lot of the WinDev environment, WebDev environment, obviously the mobile environment, what we've decided to do was put together a full-blown software package that covers both the mobile, WinDev, and WebDev, all three products. We're going to be developing this product over the next few months before the DEF CON.
May, June, July, August, September,
yes.
October. That's 6 months.
6 months. And the reason why it's going to take us 6 months is because we all got jobs. Okay? So bottom line, here's the key.
Because Arnold was helping.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, Arnold's, yeah. We got to bring Arnold along. We're taking so much time just picking a database.
Somebody just sharpened that bat.
I know. Yeah. Well, after you got my buddy Pete this morning, it's your turn. Anyway, but here's the key part about this. And if you read this, you can see, as we develop this product from start, analysis, project, UML, mobile, web, every section of this, you can, if you sign up early enough, look over our shoulders on every aspect, every step of the way. So instead of going to the DEF CON, sitting there and trying to get through a large application and learning in 1, 2, or 3 days how to do everything, you can spend the next 6 months with us looking over our shoulders at different times of the day that we do this and watch how we do that and interact with us as we do the development. And this will give you the best, we feel, one of the best methods to not only learn these products, but to interact with the development of these products from an outside standpoint. And then the 4 days of the seminar themselves will be an intense review of what we built, why we built it that way, how it works, and you will walk away from the DEF CON with a full setup of every one of the videos that was done through the entire development cycle, the entire 4 days that you're there, taped and ready to go, and your full interaction with us out here at Nashville, Tennessee. Okay? All I need you to do is 2 things. Number one, don't fart around. You can call Tim or contact Tim Fishbeck at the WinDev US distributorship, and he will get you set up for the pre-conference development cycle. We will be publishing on WXLive.us when we're going to be starting the analysis and going through the entire process. We will publish on WX Live the project that we're building and what we're going to be building with it. So everyone will be aware of what we're going down the pipe put together. And I think it's going to be a fantastic thing. A fantastic thing. Okay?
Now tell them why they need to sign up early.
Yeah, the reason you need to sign up early is because you get to pick on us for the entire 6 months. You get to watch over our shoulder and say, well, why did you do that? And we must, I repeat, must explain why. So bottom line, you got Pete Halsted, you got myself, you got Tim Fishbeck, and you got Glenn Rathke.
Me too.
And Arnold. Arnold is going to choose a database. He's going to do something.
I just pointed at it right there, that one.
So you...
And Andy and I will be showing how you can develop an application and not know what the database is going to be until the last day.
That's right. We're going to show you how Arnold does not have to choose a database till the day before the DevCon. That's it.
How can you beat that? How can you beat that?
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, the other thing to understand why you need to sign up early is you're going to get all the recordings and everything at the DevCon, but
pricing,
as we go through this, doing our live, they are live transmissions. You won't be able to, if you wait 2 months, you're not going to see those first 2 months until DevCon.
And every application's built on the
foundation.
That's right, foundation.
Yeah,
prices
like any good
may
building.
change slightly based upon things that are coming in and out, but those should be very close. So, bottom line is if you call Tim today, he pretty much take what you give him.
Yeah, the pricing will be solid within the next week. I mean, we're real close to getting the pricing right.
Yeah. So I think it's a fantastic deal. I think that, and here's the cool thing. For our friends in South Africa, because I know it's a very, 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 very expensive proposition to run all the way over here to Nashville, Tennessee, and meet up with us, is that you can still do this. Because bottom line is that you can watch us, you can get all the videos, you can get all the training, you can get everything that's going through, look over our shoulders through the whole thing, and then just not come have a drink or two with us. That'd be the only difference.
Yeah, it'd be a virtual drink.
Basically, it's like having the next 6 months of training in WinDev as you move forward, which would be a fantastic thing. So, it's not mandatory you show up to get the recordings. You'll be able to download them and get them all.
Initially, it will be streaming.
Send them to you on once. We'll send them in as one big, huge DVD to Ben Rebens, so that way.
No, it's all downloads.
Oh, it's all downloads. Arnold doesn't want to make DVDs.
No, first of all, they'll start off all streaming, and over time we will make them available as downloads.
Yeah, that's
at the end there.
Okay. Talk it up in WinDev. 5.5-inch floppy. Rob wants 5.25-inch floppies. That's what he wants.
You know what?
Yeah.
Come on down and start making them.
That's a low-level programmer there. Hey,
okay.
I still remember the.
So if you look at this price, this is cheap for training. You go anywhere else, that's how much 1 day costs. And we're having 6 months worth, right?
That is a fact. That is a fact. In fact,
Tim,
I can guarantee you we will start, absolutely will start this with the first session no later than a week from this Sunday. First session will start no later than a week from this Sunday, period.
And who's
otherwise we won't get this done. So I think myself and Pete will start looking at doing things, as well as I'll be getting with Glenn Rathke, and we'll be starting putting things together, given the layouts and everything, by, again, no later than a week from this Sunday. A week.
Right. And this is, definitely got a WinDev tilt to it, but we're also covering our design,
Yep.
database design.
You'll learn MS
Theory,
SQL, stored
field.
procedures, and
Oh, you already told
functionality.
everybody MS SQL.
Yep, it's going to be MS SQL to start with. That's because we only, we're going to do that, and then we will probably have a alternate Postgres, because Pete being involved will probably have both alternatives by the time we get to the DEF CON, but we'll be doing both. I'm just not quite as proficient in Postgres as Pete is.
It's the MS SQL is our least common denominator among the group. Right?
It really is, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
That's fine.
all of us can do MS SQL.
Okay.
So,
Anything else you want to talk? Oh man, can you talk up this lunch and snack thing?
hey,
To me?
Cam?
Yeah, we have a professional chef who's going to be preparing lunch for us each day during the conference. We are also going to have afternoon snacks, and one evening, I can't remember exactly what evening it is, we're going to have a reception.
Probably the first evening, right?
yeah.
And we've chosen the hotel that we've chosen is the Residence Inn. Please don't start making reservations because the rooms aren't ready for you all to go yet. But I've negotiated a special rate, and the Residence Inn is really nice because it has evening mixers and hot breakfast every morning, and
so that's where you
they're
can
nice
do
rooms.
your other two meals.
Right.
But hey,
So basically,
this lunch stuff that he has figured out, man, he's like catering to my stomach.
and as an old fat man like myself, I like Tim.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I are one too.
That's right.
So I don't know if there's any questions or anything, but
If anybody has any questions on the training or questions on the DEF CON, go ahead and you can raise your hand here. We'll let you talk, or you can post them in the WinDev discussions on Skype. Yes,
or
absolutely.
right here.
Oh, right here, yes. If you, the chat on everyone right here on the WinDev live thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I see my mom just logged in. There's 2 people that have used the security template.
right.
Cool. Cool.
Okay, so if we don't, let's go get going then with Mr. Security class. Let's move that on. Oh, thank you, Andy, Tim.
You're welcome.
And Pete.
You're welcome, and do understand that I'll be dipping out here in about another 5-10 minutes because
that's why we have to stop this.
I have to go to work.
Okay. Did you get the did you see that poll there? Did that?
Yes, 2 of us voted that we've actually used them.
Andy and my mom.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of no votes. Those guys just didn't want to tell you they did.
Well, actually what I was after, Arnold, is I only got paid for 1 copy, so I was trying to find out who the hell's been out there stealing it.
And it wasn't me that paid.
Exactly.
So
Thank God Mom's a developer.
so
All right, so you ready?
Pete, do you see this so you can get an idea of where that's the demographics of the group that woke up?
Ooh, we're very cool. We actually have a heavier tilt towards our WinDev group now instead of our Clarion group. That's very cool.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, awesome. I think it's great that I'm not feeling so lonely anymore, because I was thinking everybody was using WebDev and I was the only one using WinDev there for a while. So I'm not feeling so lonely now.
Alrighty.
All right.
So we're
ready?
We're gonna
Ready,
move
go for
all
it,
this
Pete.
stuff off. So everybody read this.
Andy, have a good day at work. We
will.
appreciate your stopping in this morning.
All right, y'all be good or be good at it. We will talk to you later.
Thank you there. All right, it's all yours. And if you have a mic and like Tim, and we'll mute out for you. Okay.
Okay.
So it's all yours.
All right. Well, I had several different templates that I had created way back in the day for Clarion. The security templates was one of those, and just to be clear, because Ben had brought up the question, we're talking about user security, controlling what features a user can or can't use of your application. And one of the big complaints, and I will admit that I'm one of them, when I first started looking at WinDev, first thing I looked for was, where's the template language? Oh, it doesn't have one. Well, then there's no way that I can be as proficient with WinDev as I am with Clarion, because it doesn't have a template language. And that's part of what today is how do you take templates and translate them into the WinDev way of doing and thinking. So that's kind of what we're part of what we're going to do today. Start out with, what were my requirements for user security? I need to have multiple categories of security. In other words, GL, AP. A user could be one level in GL, another level in AP. I use 9 levels of security within each category. Big key to this is I want the end user, meaning some super user or something at the client site, to be able to maintain and tweak security on their own. I obviously don't want to be changing the program because they want to change who can have access to writing checks. Then I set the default security as I'm writing the program, but I don't want to have to maintain a table with all the security settings that they can adjust or anything like that that I have to maintain and ship with the product. It has to be self-maintaining. And lastly, I don't want it to be hitting the database every time it's checking security. This actually wasn't originally part of my templates, but when I rolled them into an application that had 300 plus users hitting an application over the wire, we noticed that making all these security calls to the database started costing us some I/O. So that was another requirement, was I don't want to be constantly making reads of the database to check security. So let's talk about the design a little bit before we get into the actual code, so you get a general idea of what we're doing. You got 3 tables that are involved in security. The user table, obviously we store the login and password there. We also store a global access level. So this is the user's default security level. So if I'm a 9 in global, I have access to everything. If I'm a 3 in global, I have access to level 3 of everything, but anything above 3 I don't have access to. Then we have the security category level. This is the category specific overrides. So again, if my global level is a 3, if I have a category record for AP 9, then I have level 9 security just in the AP functions, but overall my category level is a 3. And then the security detail table is the table with all the entries of everything that's having security checked on it, all my screens, and then of course custom functions for hiding specific buttons, that sort of thing. Again, we have a category there. You know, this window belongs to the AP category, and it requires this level of access. This security detail table is the table that the end user can adjust and change the level of security required for a function. This is also the table that I didn't want to have to maintain every time I added something to security. I didn't want to have to add a record to this table, ship this table with my product. You know, that becomes a nightmare as you're releasing.
Hey, Pete, can you go back to that last slide? So that second table, that's a link file right there?
that links to the user table.
Yeah, but do you have another table that's a category table?
No, the categories in here are just a text field. That is the category table. Yeah, you're saying how do I get my choices of category?
Like my AP and all this other stuff, right?
Right. They're built by just doing a distinct on everything that's in the security detail table. Again, it's not something that I want to maintain. So because the security detail table is being built on the fly, my categories are being built on the fly as well.
But I could possibly add like a category table, right?
You could, but again, then you'd have something you're maintaining. Under this design, you're not maintaining anything, and you'll see a little more of that as we go on.
Okay.
So how's the logic work? Well, we call our check security function, and we pass it in the item name, which would be the name of the procedure, or if it's some special functionality like void check, we can do a custom name instead. Whatever text we want to pass in as this particular item we're checking for security, the category, the default level, and a description just so that the user knows what they're setting security for, whoever's maintaining the security on their side. And the default level is, as I'm designing my application, I'm making some guesses about what levels I think something should be, just so that there's a default starting point.
Hey, Pete, I'm
Yes,
used to, like, when I have individual users, I usually create groups so that I can set up.
Categories kind of translate to groups.
So that's how you would do it, like, okay. So I would say this group of people have these rights, and I assign this guy to that group.
Yeah, I have not rolled it up into a true group type situation where you can have one group that you set the categories for that group, and then all the users belong to that group. That would be something pretty easy to add to this.
I'm used to doing it that way because I don't for me a group could be, a guy could belong to like 3 groups. And that group, I define all of those, and then all I have to worry about, and kind of like, like in a network, right? So I don't have to worry.
Right. Yeah, it add an extra layer to this, but what I really like under this model, and I think you'd wind up wanting a blend of groups and this model, because the really nice thing about this model is that I can tweak one specific user. I always run into these situations where the AP clerk can do everything in AP, but because of politics or whatever, she's also can do certain things in the GL or whatever. So that one particular user has an odd combination of layers that just adding her to the AP in the GL group isn't good enough.
But you
I just had this conversation with the bank. They wanted me to switch my security over to Active Directory groups. Well, I have 13 categories in their security system, 9 levels in each of those categories. So do the math, we're talking close to 200 groups if you were to do that via groups.
Okay.
So anyway, so you call check security with what you're checking, and then the defaults, and you'll see why we're using the defaults in a minute. So if there's a record in the security detail table already for that item name that we passed in, then we use the category and the level from that record that's already there. That's how we have our end user configurability of the security system. So once that security detail record is out there, if they change it from a level 3 to a level 6, now it requires level 6 for that item. If there's not a record out there, we go write the record with the default values that we passed in. And that's how we get our automatic maintenance of this table. We do not maintain it and ship it with the product. As you run the application, it builds itself. So then we get into the actual checking of security. If your global level is equal or higher than the required level of this function, we're golden, we pass security, we move on. If your global level is not high enough, then we go out to that category table for this category that this detail is set to and see if there is a category that's high enough, that this user's category level is high enough. So again, if this is an AP function and I have an AP category in the category table for my user that's a 9, then he's going to be high enough, he's going to pass security and move on. If neither one of those security checks gets you there, then you failed security, you don't have access to this function.
That just seems like a huge matrix, but I'll reserve my, I'll see what this looks like.
Well, the beauty of it is, one, end user can configure it. Two, you have a global security that sets the default user. Like, for instance, you always have a super user on site. You give them a 9, you don't have to fool with configuring all the individual categories for that user. You just give them a 9, you're done with them. I use it at the bank because I have, and this is kind of, your groups kind of come from the global category, the way I use it. I have inquiry users and I have data entry users. So inquiry users are a global 3. They all start out at a global 3. Every inquiry function is accessible with a 3. The data entry users are a 5. The baseline data entry functions are available as a 5. And then I've got special functions of closing the day, printing checks that I have higher security on. And that's where I put in the category overrides for those users to give them access to those specific categories at whatever level they want.
So can I have like a person, in my system, I have a person that can be assigned to adding and changing but can't delete, and they got to go to an administrator to delete.
Yeah, the way I do that is I give 3 different levels to, AP. I say, when I call that function, I say adds are a 5, changes are a 6, deletes are a 7. And now I can control add, change, and deletes by how high up I ratchet you.
Okay. So you have those 9 numbers kind of laid out pretty much.
Yeah, the numbers are just a hierarchical, the higher your number, the more access you have.
I'd probably make them all equate so I know what that meant. But
well, again, Arnold, remember that they're not specific to a specific thing. They're all over, and the end user can change. The end user can go in there and say, for this function, I want you to have a 9 to do a delete. So, equates don't really work because, again, this is completely, you're setting up defaults, but the end user can tweak security around however they need to.
Okay, so you're making it as flexible as possible for the...
For me. I don't want to be changing the program to change security settings.
Okay.
All right, so now let's go look at our code.
Oh man, I can't see that so well. Let's see.
Hang on, slow down. Options of the code editor.
Can't you do the control? Oh yeah, you're on 16.
What did we go to last time? 12, was it? How's that work for you?
It's not bad.
Okay, well, we created this as a class, and I got to give Andy a little credit here. He had actually already done part of this for me on a project we did in South Carolina, so I had the starts of a class to begin with. And one of the things we're going to be looking at is we're going to use arrays of structures to replicate queues, because over on the Clarion side I had done this. I had loaded up those two tables, the category table and the detail table, into queues. That's how I kept from doing all the database reads, constantly checking security. So I needed to replicate that logic over here, so we're doing that with arrays with structures within the array. So that's what these first two structures are.
This is global to the whole application, right?
Yeah, this is a class, and I'll show you where we're declaring that class shortly. So here's our category structure, here's our detail structure, and then this is just the definition of the class itself. We have arrays of each of those structures. Time to get up.
I'm up.
And then we have a few variables that we're using within the class. I'm passing in the connection. So the cool thing there is, you know, if you're doing a dynamic connection or whatever, you pass in the connection to this class, and this class uses whatever connection you tell it. So you can create a connection and have your security in a different database, whatever. You pass in the connection to this class, and that's where the class is going to go look for these tables to load them up. And then we're passing in the currently logged in user and his global access level. And we'll see where we're doing all that shortly. I'm not using the constructor and destructor methods because of the way we're doing this. I can't really initialize this class until after the user is logged in. So I'm declaring the class in my project prior to knowing who's logged in. So I couldn't put my initialization code in the constructor. So I actually have it down here in a little init. And this is where I initialize my class. I pass in the user, the access level, the connection, set those variables for the class, and then I call load security. Load security is just taking those structures and loading the tables into those arrays. So our category table is our first table. We're going to get all the category records for this one particular user, loop through them. We set the structure fields to the whatever we returned from our table. Then we add that record to our array. And then if we had a problem with our SQL statement, we throw up a little message. So any questions on the syntax of this structure, adding the fields to the structure and then adding the structure to the array?
Let's see. Rob says, Arnold, I like your equate idea. Each application can have its own set of equates, but it would be much easier to remember what number is a level. Another program with the equates and use indirection to say, okay, that's not a question. That's a, oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, he's got 2 question marks at the end of it.
Yeah, I do. So maybe you can read that. I don't know. Oh, what number? No, I don't know. Anyway, basically, now, does this assignment happen every time you go into a...
This is when you load up, when you log into the application, and I'll show you that call once we get through the class code. But when you log into the application, I've got to go out there and load up the security and memory.
One time.
Based on you. Yes. One time I load everything up into the arrays, and then as you're going through the application, I'm just hitting those arrays. I'm never going back out to the database.
Okay. So you don't do intermittent checks every so often, just in case somebody like says, "Oh, I was just setting up the access level."
I don't. You obviously could do that,
obviously,
but you know how often do you change security? You know, you really don't change security that often. So I've never seen the value of the overhead of that.
Yeah. I mean, in mine, I allow it because somebody goes in and says, "Hey, I can't do this." I says, "Hang on," and I up their level, and then it says, "Okay, I can work now." But this way, I'd have to say you got to get out and come back in, which is no big deal either.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So next we go out and grab the detail table, which the detail table is every item that's being checked for security is in that detail table. So we go out there and get all those records and load those into a secondary array. So exact same, you know, we put them into the structure, then we put the structure into the array.
Why do you have to do both? Structure first, then the array.
Right, and the reason for that, and we've had a lot of discussions on the Skype group about this, WinDev's arrays are one variable type.
Oh, it's a pair?
You can't have an integer and a string and some other field all in your array. So, but you can have an array of structures. So, because it considers a structure one variable type.
That's right.
So we put all of our variables into a structure, and then the array is just an array of structures. And later on, we're going to see the fetch of this array, and you're going to see how this array of structures acts just like a Clarion queue.
Sweet. Yeah, I remember that now.
So that's loading up when we log in. The only other thing that we do, well, actually, let's go over now and we'll see those calls. There's only 2 calls involved to get this thing all set up in our application. We're in our project code now, and all I did here was this line, security, SEC is security. You know, my class is already defined in my project. All I got to do now is declare an instance of that class. So that is the only line that's in my project code, is just declaring an instance of the class.
That's pretty easy. It's like one global, drop that global extension on.
Right, yeah, here, exactly. And then over on my main menu, oh, you weren't supposed to see those. That's bonus material over here. Then on my main menu, once you're logged in, you know, this is the function that's logging you in. Once you're logged in, then all I do is initialize that class. You know, my class name .init. Remember, our procedure name over in the class was init. We pass in the user ID, his global access level, and my connection is the connection I'm using in this application. So when we call this, boom, we go load up those arrays. Security is loaded up now. We're ready to run our application and get on with our live.
You know what you're saying, the WinDev way of doing it versus the Clarion template way. I mean, really, this is the way the rest of the world does things. So
it is, and I will show us here at the end. I happen to have my template open over here. Let me drag it over for a second. Here is my Clarion template. getting a feel for, you know, there's a lot of stuff in this template because, you know, I had to do a global extension. I had to do a procedure extension. Then I had to do an override of the procedure extension. You know, it all made sense and seemed like the greatest thing in the world back when I first saw Clarion, and it was. But now that the rest of the world has really caught up with extensibility and so forth, I'm not so sure that templates really are better than, you know, an OOP approach like this. I mean, this as you see, you know, first of all, our class is not very wordy, and we're only dropping in a few statements here and there.
Well, if you look at templates, it actually could be a wrapper to a class, so it doesn't have to be complicated. You could write a class in Clarion and use a template
but
on top.
Of course, the problem is, you know, first, there weren't that many guys that really understood how to write templates because it was another language. And then, you know, to write a class, then write a wrapper to the class, it just started becoming a bear to maintain and manage. You know, and that's coming from a guy that had third-party templates out on the market. You know, I love them. You know, they're great and wonderful, but you know that there are other ways, and you know, I'm just saying that, you know, as I'm going along, I'm learning that, you know what, I can live without the templates. I don't need them as much as I thought. When I first started looking at WinDev, I thought that not having the templates was going to be a non-starter for me, and it's proven not to be.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making.
And the other thing too is if you start doing the quote-unquote WinDev way, if you start reading code from other development environments, you know, and you look at things in the light of classes, they're so much easier to read because you're not thinking template. So
right, exactly. And like everything else, it's also how well those classes are written. You know, OOP is a tool. That tool can be used correctly or incorrectly. And if it's used correctly, it's very easy to read the code, use it, modify it.
extend
Used incorrectly,
whatever. Yeah.
It's exactly used incorrectly. You've created far worse spaghetti code than the go-to statement ever thought about creating. And you know, anyone that ever worked in the first version of the ABC classes knows what I'm talking about. You know, I'll give David Bayless all the credit in the world. The man's a genius, but you know, that first version of the classes was, you know, a legacy approach to OOP, and we all understand why that was. But you know, don't blame Clarion for being bad at OOP. It's the classes that were bad, and I assume, and I've heard that in 7 and 8, you know, the classes make a lot more sense, and Arnold can probably attest to that far better than I can.
Yep. But you could still write your own classes there, but okay.
Right. All right. So that's all there is to setting up our security. We declared the class in our project, and then once the user's logged in, we call our initialization.
So that's one method.
If I already knew who my user was, I could have created the constructor method to be doing the initialization, and I wouldn't even, it would have been one call, not 2 calls. But because I have to wait until my user's logged in, I've got to do my initialization outside of the constructor method. So now we'll look at our code that's actually checking the security. We pass it in an item name, category, level, description, and a Boolean variable that says whether or not we want to display an error message if they fail security. And remember, the category, the description, and the access level are just there for defaults, is the only reason that we're passing those in. is if our record isn't already in our security detail table, we want to add the record so that it's out there to be maintained by the user.
By user, you mean
yeah, whoever the super user is on the
system.
client
Okay.
side of things, right? Anyone other than me, Arnold.
Okay.
Can you tell how much I like support?
0.
All right. Structures, for anyone that hasn't dealt with structures, when you declare your structure, you can't use it directly. You always have to declare a variable of that is of that type of structure. Your actual declaration of the structure is a type, not a variable itself. So because we're using them into this code, I'm just declaring a local version of that structure as a variable. And then we're using one variable called the subscript. And this is our QGet right here. All we do is we say ArraySeek, our array that we loaded up when we loaded up the variable. This is how we're going to perform the search. You can do linear searches and binary searches, and there was some discussion last week how great the binary search is and how much faster it is depending on the type of data and if it's pre-sorted and so forth. Since my data isn't necessarily pre-sorted because I'm going to be adding a few records on the fly occasionally, I just went with linear, and I'm only going to have a few hundred records in here. Big difference between that and a couple 100,000 records in your array. And this here inside the quotes is the name of the variable inside that structure. So if we come back up and look at our structure definition, item name. We loaded item name here from our security detail table. So we're saying go out to this array for this component of the structure within that array, look for this value, and this is the item name we passed in. So in the Clarion speak, this would be get Q comma Q colon item name, and up here we would have Q colon item name equals an item name. And for those of you that aren't Clarion guys, I apologize for digressing into Clarion, but I know there's a lot of us on the group that are, so sometimes it helps to see the Clarion version of a statement. So, makes sense? I explained the syntax well enough there, Arnold?
I think so. For me.
All right. ArraySeek is going to return the subscript of the array. In other words, it's going to say, I found what you were searching for at this position within the array. If it returns a -1, it's not found in the array at all. So that's what this code down here is. As long as it's not.
So how does it start off as -1?
The ArraySeek returns. That's
just the way that works. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. ArraySeek returns a -1 if it does not find a match.
Got it.
So if we found a match, all we do is load that array subscript, that element of the array, into our structure. And now because remember, our array is an array of structures, so all 3 or 4 of our variables have now been loaded into that structure with this statement right here. So if it found, you know, row 72 of our array had our values in it, it just took all 4 of those variables from row 72 and stuck them into our temp array, or our temp structure. If we return to -1, then we want to go add a record to the security detail table. This is our functionality that's building that security detail table on the fly. When I first ship an application out to a end user, that security detail table is empty. First time they run the application, as they're running it, setting it up, it's building that security detail table on the fly. Again, the beauty of that is it's not a table I've got to maintain. I don't have to add records to it as I'm building the application. Every time I add a new security check, I don't have to remember to put a new record in that table, ship a new version to the client. None of that. You know, it's built on the fly as they hit the security checks.
So as you add
Now,
like a new module later, that'll get picked up.
Exactly. And the other beauty of that is, remember, the end user is maintaining that table over on their side. So if I were to ship a new version of that table, I'm going to wipe out all the customer overrides that they did. So, you know, I don't want to ship that table out. I want to leave their version there. And all I'm doing is, if there isn't a record there, I'm creating a default record. Now, I could have passed these 4 variables to this function, add security detail, but, you know, we can pass in a structure. Since I already have a structure, I just load up my 4 variables into my structure and I pass the entire structure over. Makes my call nice and clean.
Yeah, I mean, if people look at what in Clarion it's called a group type that you have an instance of, and you just pass this group in, right? The structure's the same kind of thing.
Exactly.
So passing a group is, or a structure in this case, is a lot easier.
And then here's that add security detail that we're calling. And all we're doing is taking the values we passed in and inserting record in the security detail table. And then we also need to add it to our array. So the next time that we check our array, the record will be in our array.
The other beauty of structures is if you come up with another idea someday and you add another element of this structure, you can just add it and it's part of that structure, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's going to get passed right along with everything else. So at this point, we now have whatever security is required for this function. And again, we've gotten it out of that security detail table. We didn't actually go out to the disk to get it because we're getting it out of our array so that we're not creating all the I/O over the wire or whatever. But we now know this function requires a GL level 7. So now all we do, this is that big massive matrix that Arnold was concerned about.
Yeah, man, that just seems huge.
It's almost 10 lines of code. So we check our security level versus the user's global level. If his global level is equal or higher, then we're done. We return back a true, we pass security. If he fails that test, then we need to go out to the category table for this user, which again, remember, is in an array, and see if he has a category override that's high enough to get him passed. So we passed in the category GL, so we go see if he has an entry for the GL category. If he does, then we check that level. If he still hasn't passed, then we're going to return a false you failed security. And remember, the last variable we passed in was the display message. If it's set to true, then we're going to throw out this little canned message. Sorry, you do not have access to this function. It's got a delay of 5 seconds on it. This is a little custom function I've written that we'll share that at some point at a future webinar. And if you pass in a false, then the security class has no UI at all. It's just going to return true or false and let you handle the UI on your side. And I use both of these for checks of, does the user have access to this procedure? I go ahead and use my canned message. When I'm hiding and unhiding buttons, that sort of thing, then I call it with a false because I don't want any message. I just want to find out if they pass or not so that I can then do my hiding and unhiding.
So that with this way of doing it, you check at the global level so that you don't even have to have details in every like AP, AR. If you just say this guy's an administrator, you just bypass all of that, right? Because they're a 9.
Ah, see, the light bulb comes on in San Francisco right around 5:30 every morning, apparently.
Yeah, we hit the magic hour.
That's exactly the idea. You know, for myself, I'm always in there as a 9. That's the only entry in security for me. I'm set up as a 9. I can do everything. My super user on site is usually an 8. They can do damn near everything. And then there's a few things that I'll go in and give them a 9 in that specific category. And then there's other things where they won't have that ability.
So is that at the global level where you can be a 9 of just maybe AP, but a 5 in AR?
Well, whatever your global level is, that is, there's no way to ratchet you down. In other words, if you're a global 9, you're a 9 everywhere.
Okay.
So what you do is you set your global level at the lowest level you want this user to be, and then you ratchet them up for specific categories that you want them to be even higher in.
Okay. Yeah, obviously it has to be that way. Otherwise they get too much.
So that is the extent of our class. We have now seen all the code of our class. So not a lot of code there, is it?
No, but it's well thought out. That's the thing.
It definitely was a lot messier the first couple of iterations of it. And you know, this was kind of a preview of what the DevCon is going to be, because you know, for those that were on Skype last night, I designed this and wrote it last night. Now I had the advantage of having done this model for years, so you know, I already knew the general idea of what I wanted to do. I just had to translate it to the WinDev model.
And I had to give you a deadline, so.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, that paying customer deadline doesn't mean anything,
Nope.
But when Arnold gives me a deadline, that's a deadline. Okay, so now here's one of my windows of my application. And the first thing I want to do is see if this user has access to this function whatsoever. So I make a call to my security check. My window name contains the name of the window. You know, the win underscore comments or the form underscore history invoice header. It's very important to use my window name here. There's also a function called current win. The issue is, if you look in the help files, current win gives you different results depending on whether you're in the initialization code, in the global area, where my window .name absolutely will return win underscore history invoice header for here. This is my category. You know, this is a daily function. This is the description. I'm using my window title, whatever I assign the title of the window. Browse the invoice history. The default level, and then whether I want the message to display or not. So you see, as all I got to do is drop this 3 lines of code at the top of every one of my windows, and the only 2 variables, well, yeah, I'm always going to leave it true because I want the canned message for if they can get into the window or not. The only variables I set are what is the category, what is the default level. Now, I'm going to give a little homage to Wolfgang, who is still my favorite guy a week later, because those 3 lines of code is something that, back in the old days, I would have had that over in a notepad somewhere so I could copy and paste it all the time. But you know what? We're in a new world order.
Bingo.
That's a code brick. So
hey, I'm just wondering.
Adding checking to my application, I had to type in 4 characters, hit the enter key, type in my category, and hit enter.
That's too hard for me. I'd rather just drop a template on.
I know it. Yeah, I'd rather write all that code of checking security in every single spot because I charge by the line.
Yeah. So this is for the window. What about controls?
Right.
I mean,
for controls, I would do the exact same thing, except I would come in here. Now, on this one, this is a different item. I may have that code just a little off there, but you get the idea.
they gave you more than you wanted there.
That's because it's great. Okay, so, and I may advance my class, somebody gave me a deadline. I may advance my class where I can call it and pass in 3 levels and do add, change, and delete and blow them all out there at one time. But all I would do is add, use my procedure name still and just tack onto the end of it, add. My category would be the same. My description again, adding records. Level 5, and now I'm passing in the false because I don't want the canned message to pass in. So now I go out there and check. It's going to look up the item name win_history invoice header -add, and if they pass the security checking, great. If not, I'm going to gray out the add button.
Hey Pete, what if I wanted to do view? It'd be a lower level. They can only view.
Right, and I do that. I do views as for, pretty much the way I normally do my logic is if they don't have the others, then they're in view mode.
Automatically, so if they don't have add, change,
Right.
or delete their view.
Right.
So I have to have that in there. Otherwise, it'd be view only.
Yeah, and again, it all depends on how you're going to, all the security class itself is doing is telling you whether or not they pass security. It's managing the checking and the maintaining of the security. What you do with that security is on you. If I tried to make it actually do things like put it in view mode and so forth. Now I've made it so specific that, you know, it's not going to work for every situation. You know, the nice thing about this is I drop this into every application. I've been dropping it into my applications for 25 years, and I've yet to run into a situation I couldn't handle with just checking the security and hiding, unhiding controls, whatever I needed to do. You know, and I always have a section somewhere in my code when you first open the window where I go set all that stuff up. You know, you always have a section in your code where you're setting your window up based on the user and whatever other criteria.
Yeah. You know, it just feels like it's template code that should be just dropped in there, but
it is. It very
I
much
mean,
is.
can it,
You know,
can it be
that's
where,
the only thing that you're lacking in the WinDev model is there's really not a way to say I want this code on every window at the global decoration point. I have to go add this code up there. That's the only
global
that's the only
declaration
thing
of
that
that?
you don't have from the window from the template system.
So it's not like a super something you can drop in or anything, huh? Okay.
A super control. Again, no matter what it is, it's something that you have to drop on.
Yeah.
There's no way. Well, the one thing you could do is if you have a template that all your windows are based on,
Yeah.
you
That's what
could
I'm
have this
thinking.
code in that template for your window. I don't use templates for my windows that much. For so far, my windows have been different enough that I really haven't I haven't
Well, I'm
done
just
that.
thinking starter
But yeah,
windows, not the
if
UI
you
part.
based your window on a template, then yes, you could have this code in the template of the window, and it would live on every one.
Okay. So every button or control that you want to deal with has a line of code in a statement just like that.
Right, and usually I do them all when you first open the window. In other words, I don't check the button security when you press the button. I usually check it at the beginning of the window and disable the button or what have you. You know, it's the old UI thing of, you know, you don't let the user press the button and say, nah, you can't hit this button. You give them the visual cue that they're not allowed to hit the button.
So you take care of that all up front, which makes sense before the screen actually paints, right? So
Right, exactly. So let's see it in action. I know you love that, that animation, don't you, Arnold? So this is the window that we had that security on, and you noticed I passed security. I'm good. The window opened. No problems. Now let's go out to the database real quick. I'm doing that on the other screen, so you guys aren't actually seeing it, but I'm changing the requirements.
you're playing God right now, aren't you?
Exactly. Okay. My user is set up. Actually, let me drag this over for a minute. These are the categories for my user. Let's actually look at his global level also. Okay, my global level is a 1. So Anything higher than a 1, I'm going to have a category override for. And these are the category overrides I have. For daily, I have a level 4. Okay? That security detail table, here's the record for that win invoice history. It's now a 5. I just changed it to a level 5. This, at the client side, I actually have a browse and a form that lets them maintain these records, and they would just go in there and change it to a 5. So now, when I run the application, sorry, you don't have access to this function. And now my user cannot get to that function. And to see how this works, let's go back and do that little cool trick. So now we're checking a completely different item. That item right now does not exist in our security detail table. Now if we look at our security detail table, it just added that record for us based on the defaults that we set. Make sense?
So the thing just adds it in the background for me, huh?
Exactly. Again, you know, I don't want to maintain this table. You know, as you see, and this is a small app. There's only 80 entries in this. Down in Charleston, in that huge app we had down there, we had a couple thousand entries in this table. I don't want to maintain a couple thousand entries. So, any questions?
So that was all
that's
the
pretty much
possibilities
it.
in that table, but not necessarily the user in there, right?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the user. This is
all the categories of security.
Everything that I am checking security-wise. I'm checking. You know, most of these you'll notice they're actual procedure names, but then you'll see dash change. And there'll be some specific ones in here where I'm doing, you know, very special functions that aren't necessarily anything to do with the procedure, like, you know, the ability to override the date on a check, those type of things that, you know, only certain users are allowed to post a backdated entry, different things like that.
Gotcha. I think I'm seeing the light even more now.
Cool. So that's the basics of the security class. Like I said, I may expand it to kind of do some of these add, change, delete things automatically. You know, we'll see as I move on with my app whether I feel I need that or not.
Well, I think if you started on Wednesday and not Thursday night, you would have had it in there.
Probably so. Probably so. But you know, somebody called me up and interrupted me. We did. I promised some bonus material, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, is there any other questions about the security class? You can only have it if you attend the thing.
It's $10 a line.
Yep.
Code. I wish I was a little wordier with the writing of the code.
Okay.
No, I will be probably sometime this weekend. I'll get a blog article put together, and the code will be available as part of the blog article.
Cool. So you have Skype on your other screen?
I can have it. Yes, sir.
Okay, so at about 46 minutes after the hour, there's some questions starting. If you want to pick them, or you want me to read them?
Let's see. I see Ben's got a question there. Does this mean someone has to first load the procedure before it becomes available to set security at runtime? Yes, you have to have done it the first time to create that record in security detail. So the user won't be able to override it, but security is already there at the default levels I've set up. So it's not like anyone's going to be able to get into anything. You know, I've already more or less thought out what the default security should be. So the default security is going to be there. It's just when they start wanting to tweak, they can. And usually during the first few days of them learning how to use the application, they hit every button and feature there is anyway. So I've never had an issue with it.
That's called stress testing.
Welcome back, Andy.
Hey.
All right. I'm having trouble seeing. Are there other questions out there, Arnold?
Let's see. Rob says, I assume it updates with the change of code, and that's probably yes, right? Because it builds it on the fly. So if I change code, then it changes.
Yes, yeah. As you saw, I went in there and added -add. It updated that record.
Yeah, and Steve,
it added a new record.
And then Steven says, how does the admin person know what name of the item is that they have to change to give access?
That's what the description field is for. And for the most part, I just let it default to the title bar description, because usually that's descriptive enough. But if we look at that security detail table, you'll see print daily check register, maintain transfer transaction code, ability to approve duplicate invoices. There's one of my custom ones right there, Arnold.
So I
approve duplicate invoices.
So basically, I can build myself a table, right? That they maintain this, and not necessarily going straight to the database. So I would build a table.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got a browse that lets them maintain this.
Right. Is that
and that browse has Glenn's QBE on it, of course, so they can search for duplicate in the description and see all of the security entries that relate to duplicates. Now, you do understand, since I started on this last night, that that browse only exists in my mind right now, right?
Well, I was. It's kind of in my mind too. Okay. Let's see. Rob says, if you change the access level in the code, I already read that one.
Now, if you change the access level in the code, no, it does not override the table, because remember, you want the client to be able to maintain security. So once they start tweaking those access levels, you want their access levels to apply, not your default levels that you're setting. If you add a new record, obviously no record exists. It's going to take your default level. Now, if for some reason you got to globally change something as part of your update script for your new version, you just have a delete statement go out there and delete that record out of security detail, and it'll get rebuilt with your new default. But for the most part, you would never want to do that. The whole point is to let them control the security, not you as a developer.
Chris asks, do you need to add the security code for each control that requires notification?
If you've got specific controls that you want to do something with, yes.
You have to have that up there in the global, right?
For the most part, I've never needed to control every single control on my screen with a different level of security. If you've got that kind of need, you'd probably want to extend the template to step through the window, enumerate the controls, and do something like that. And that may be something that I do if, the old rule of thumb, if I ever get a paying client that needs it.
Hey, Pete, can you apply the security to a group, the type of group that ties different controls together?
Yeah, I mean, again, the security is only giving you a pass or fail.
Yeah, so I guess
your code is doing whatever you want from there. So yeah, you could enable the group, disable the group, whatever you need to do. And I do that often.
Okay.
For the most part, all I've ever had to do with my security is, rough cut every browse has security on it. You can either get in the browse or not. Every form has add, change, and delete levels. At that point, I've handled 90% of the security for my application.
Mm-hmm.
Then all I'm doing is a few specialized functions like approving duplicates, backdating transactions. So then I add those checks, and take backdating transactions for an instance. That's one that I don't use the category GL. I use the category global or whatever you want to call it. And it's backdating transactions, categories global, it's a level 7. Okay, now I'm doing that call in AP, I'm doing that call in GL, and I'm calling the item name backdate transaction. If that user can backdate transaction, boom, if I set that level, that user has a global 7 set, he can backdate transactions everywhere that he needs to be able to backdate transactions. I don't have to go in and configure that security on the data entry screen for AP invoices and the data entry screen for GL entries and the screen for cash receipts. Backdate transactions is a global function that works everywhere. So that's my approach to it. You can, again, the beauty of this model is you can bend and meld this thing however you need to do it.
So Hemet says,
all it's doing is giving you a yay or nay.
So Hemet asks, can you use this for procedures instead of just Windows? I think you just said yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can use it anywhere because all you're doing is, asking it, hey, does this user have the security they need to do this? All it's doing is telling you yay or nay. From there, you're doing whatever you want with it.
And then he also says that he's assuming that you add this line in the beginning of the procedure, and that's what we talked about in the global.
Right. I did it up there in the global declaration. It all depends on what you're doing, where and how you want to do it. The beauty of it is it's a simple call, so you can pretty much add it wherever depending on your specific needs.
Rob says, can you have a global class of controls share a level like a edits are all 3s or something like that?
If you want to do that as a class type function, you'd have to add some functionality to the class. More than likely, what I'm going to do is, I usually have my buttons all named the same, button add, button change, button delete, and I will just have some code bricks that do all that. Or I may create a window template and have all that logic as part of my window template to do that, and just make the calls to the checking. I'm not sure how I'll do that. I haven't got far enough with my app yet to get into the add, change, delete logic yet.
All right.
But again, the beauty of it is that class is the foundation that I can extend and expand however I need to accomplish what I need to get done.
Emmett says, can you tell me why again? You got 9 levels. How come you don't have just 3 or 15 or 30?
9 has worked for me for 25 years. The answer to that is because that's the way I've always done it. You could just as easily do 99. In fact, I store it as a byte, so you could do 255 if you want. But remember Arnold wanted equates for the 9, so You know, he's going to die if you do 255. But
Okay.
there's no magic in my class that has anything to do with 1 through 9.
But if you don't want to use 9, you can stop at 3, right?
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, all the class is doing is saying is the level required higher than the level this user is. So there's no magic meaning to any of those numbers.
Yeah, I guess the problem with
they just ratchet up higher and higher.
I think the problem with the equate idea is it doesn't give me a sense. It gives me a good naming convention, but it doesn't give me a sense of how high the food chain it is.
Exactly, and like I said, you know, the thing you got to remember is because this thing is user configurable, you start trying to say a level 6 means this and a level 4 means that, you've now made it too restrictive for them to be able to do whatever they want on their end, or they have to remember that you're saying a 6 is ads, but they decided that ads were a 4.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, remember, I could have ads being a 4 in AP and ads being a 7 in GL. Yeah. So
that's why you don't have that extra table I was looking for, right?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, I want this thing to be flexible enough that they can do whatever they want with it. And you know, I've got a lot of users out there, and they, you know, once they spend a couple hours with it, they understand and they come up with their own convention of, you know, what each level is or isn't. And of course, as I'm setting up the application, designing it, I do have a discussion with them about security and kind of get a general theme of what numbers, and those are what I use as the defaults, so that, you know, it starts out configured at the default of what they want, but then, you know, 10 years from now, they're tweaking security without me being involved.
Hey, so if I have an existing app and they're used to a certain way because I dictated what the levels were, can I pre-populate everything for them?
Sure. I mean, you know, the easiest way for you to do that is to add all the security calls into your code, run the app, get your table, and then send them the table.
I guess that would do it.
You know, or just let them build the table on the fly the first time they run it. You know, it all depends on if you're trying to translate from something else or what. But you know, your default levels, you know, this is a marriage of a couple of different, you know, the way some things are. The first thing I got to do when I set up an application, I got to spend a day going through the security table and configuring all this. You know, that's the last thing I want to do on the first day of installing a new application, is spend a day going through every entry in the security table. I don't understand the application enough to make those decisions. So that's the reason I have all these defaults and let it build the defaults on the fly, is the defaults are good enough to get them started. And then as they start learning the application and using it, then they start making those decisions of, you know what, I want to give a few more people access to this function. They go in and tweak the setting, and now more people have that function.
Yeah, okay. So if there's no other questions, let's go to your bonus, because
bonus material, yeah, I'm late to work.
Yeah.
Andy, if you could do me a favor and you know, Skype George and tell him it's your fault I'm late.
Not a problem. I'll tell him I had you tied up.
Ooh,
all right, so bonus material.
Yeah, baby.
What the hell? Why has he got a table over here?
FYI, George is not at work yet either.
George is probably in our staff meeting.
No, he's on this webinar.
He usually at least is
he's not at work
logged on. He hasn't logged on yet.
Cool. All right. Well, you know, as long as I beat the boss in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
yeah, why is that all over there, man?
Yeah, you can't even see the damn thing. Why would you ever do that?
I don't know.
Well, one of the tricks we learned this week was, you can drop controls off your screen. You can interact with them, do whatever you need to do. User never sees them. Now, one of the tricks is I anchored it to the right, so as they expand the window, it just keeps pushing it to the right. They never see it. I can't remember if it was Rob or Chris, somebody on the list last week said they use the same trick, but they put the controls above their screen. That way they don't have to set the anchor. Good idea. So however you decide to do it, the trick is a control that you never see on the screen. And this happens to be
And it doesn't
our
affect
security detail table.
That doesn't affect the resizing or anything, huh?
No. And in fact, we were running the application. Did you ever see the table?
No.
This is our security detail table. It's set up to load out of the security detail table.
So if I hit a function key, Shift Control F12, can I pop it up? I guess so, huh?
You could, but that's not what I'm using it for.
Okay.
Remember how we loaded the array in our security detail table? We created the structure, loaded the array.
At the beginning of the program.
Right.
No.
Well, if that is just, dealing with structures and array is just too hard, you don't really want to deal with all that. Creating this table, guess what? Memory tables are kind of the same thing as a queue. And the beauty of WinDev is we can access controls from another window. We don't have to do that whole referencing thing and all that. Our little bonus button, table seek, window name dot table name dot column name, win invoice history header. And that's saying in that table that's living over on the main menu, in the column item name, search for the record that has win underscore history header in it, and give me what row in the table that is. And then once I have that row, then I can go get the value of description.
Yes, serious. Oh my goodness.
And I don't remember what my security setting. Okay, we're good. We hit the bonus button, and row 76 of that table, the description, browse the invoice history. So,
and that's a table.
That is another way to do a queue.
And that's a table on that mainframe.
Yes. Yeah, that table's living over here, and since this window always exists, that table is accessible. And just to prove it to Arnold,
prove it.
There's my resizing. You're not seeing any refresh problems, no issues whatsoever. Now, the cool part about this is, over in our class, it's not a lot of code, but we had to declare a structure, and then we had to declare our array of that structure, loop through and load our array. Over here, all we did is define a table and tell it to load up that table. No code whatsoever to get our security detail table loaded up in memory so that we can hit those records just like we would a queue.
Sweet.
So there are two approaches to doing the same thing as we do with queues in Clarion. So, don't let it be said that we don't have queues. We absolutely have queues.
Nice bonus. So you think you're going to start moving yours to the top? It probably is easier to see it on the right side because you have more width on your...
Yeah. My windows are usually full screen, so I like them to the right. Yeah. And all I have to do is go in and set the anchor to the right, and I'm good.
You done?
And one of the things I like about this, another spot that I'm using this trick, is this button right here. That's my Control F12. This is my Big Brother function. I can go out there and see. This is everyone that's logged in today, how many scans they've done, how many invoices they've keyed in, how many line items, how many minutes they've been logged in.
Oh my God, you're right. It is Big Brother.
Yes, it is. And then if I'm, I'm getting ready to fire Arnold, I pop down Arnold's and I look and see over the last week what the hell he's been doing. And how I'm doing that is with this hidden button here. I've got a hotkey, Control F12, and then I'm just opening that browse from that button. And because that button's over here off the screen, they never see the button. It's completely hidden. Hitting Control F12 does it.
So it's hidden.
Now I tried doing this little trick first. I tried to put it over here and come in and do, it's not visible. Problem is, if the button isn't visible, the hotkey isn't active.
So to disable,
putting it over here, then it's visible, but you never see it.
Huh. Interesting. Well, that's great. Okay.
Questions, comments?
I think it's slick. Can't wait to write my line.
Yes. Yeah, we will probably be using some of this stuff in the DevCon app.
Well, I think we will.
Oh, yes, we will.
Yep.
Yes, we will.
It's already on the list. You know that, Pete.
Yeah, that and the QBE stuff.
Exactly.
All kinds of little things.
And one of the things, Andy, that we didn't tell people is, how when you go to training or you go to a conference, you got to wait all the way to the November to go learn something in a few days, and then you go home and you forget it, or you use a few things. This way, all along the way, you're learning.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
And
you're like you said, you're getting 6 months of training.
Yep.
Yeah.
How can
You're getting class time for 6 months. That's absolutely correct.
I'd have to raise the price, Andy.
See, we told them to get in early.
That's right. That's a fact there.
Okay.
So yeah, this is just a little piece of the type of stuff that you're going to be getting as part of that. This is a very, very small piece of the stuff that we will be creating. I created this last night. So
did you show them the class that was built, Pete? I don't know. I probably missed that.
Yeah. That's the entire class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that tight? Or
and then to scare the hell out of them, I showed them the Clarion template. I'm hitting the mouse scroll and nothing's happening over there.
I don't know why.
Well, because it's C6, not C8. You're missing it.
Why? So, I'm not going to say it.
Okay, neither am I. I'm stopping there. All we know is there's multiple tools in the world, and this is a nice one.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
yes, I still got my grandfather's 1948 model drill, half-inch drill. It weighs about 25 pounds. It's certainly not as powerful as even my new electric drill, portable electric drill that I bought for $26. So the deal is if you still want to work with year-old 10, 20-year-old technology, go for it.
Okay, we got to send Pete back to work so he can keep making money.
Yeah, it
and helping
does.
us out. Pete, this is fantastic. I got to give you more deadlines, but you do have more deadlines.
Yeah, I'm sure I do.
Yeah, cool. Very good. Okay, so claps, and I'm not going to bring the names up, but should I bring the attendees and let them clap?
Oh, yeah, let them go for it. Why not?
Okay, raise your hands. And
We got half
clap.
of South Africa
Yeah,
out here.
get the clap thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Everybody's got the clap now.
Yeah,
Get the
isn't
clap.
that pretty?
Oh, clap it all. Clap, clap, clap. Okay.
All right, we'll see you guys as soon as we can in class.
All righty.
All right.
Sign up.
In
I
class.
appreciate so many folks coming and signing up and watching today. Great turnout for early in the morning or late in the afternoon, depending on where you were.
Yeah, well, they're noon over there in South Africa. That's why they're all here.
And they're just goofing off.
Yeah, they're out there goofing off, sitting outside, drinking the brewski.
Maybe I'll just leave this up like that. What do you think?
There you go. Get for it, son. And you got to get that on the website this weekend.
Okay, boss. Tim's here, right?
Yeah, Tim's here. I talked to him, too.
You're just not talking to me. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody, and have a great weekend. And look.
Yeah, anybody has any questions,
Put it-
post it into our Skype. And, hey, we've got 94 people now in our Skype group. We are 6 away from popping the champagne.
Hey,
6 away from popping the champagne. That's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic.
you know,
For something we literally started, 7 months ago? I think 7 or 8 months ago is when I started it. It has not been that long. It has not been that long. It's been great.
and let's see. There was something I was gonna say for Tim, but I can't remember now. So he says not to sign up quite yet, but let him know that you're coming.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah. Like I say, we're going to start the first session. First session is going to be no later than a week from this Sunday. First session is going to be no later than a week from this Sunday. And that'll be the first session. So that would be the first thing that everybody gets to see. Everybody gets to understand how we're doing things. Okay?
yes, sir. So I'm going to stop the recording now.
Yeah, that's what Tim said. Don't forget to